Cycling for me has never been about the bikes. They've only ever been the prerequisite tool. I do not see just a bike race, I see riders on heroic journeys and warriors doing battle. At one point, cycling was the most popular sport in Europe because newspapers told magnificent tales about epic races and crafted the great champions into legends. But with the advent of television, cycling lost some of its mystique, and that golden age of journalism and narration has perished. So now let us try to return some romance to the beautiful sport. Let us praise and give glory to phenomenal performances to be remembered for decades to come. Let us dwell on the moments that inspire and move us. Let us chronicle the rise and fall of heroes. Let us chart these life-changing journeys, these cycling odysseys. All right, welcome back to another episode of Cycling Odysseys. I'm your host, Patrick Santino. Let's see, what are we doing? Oh, UAE Tour. All right, so it was first World Tour race of the year, desert race, Middle East race. Not going to lie, it was extremely same old. And I'm not going to say I'm fed up with it, because I'm not really fed up with it. I mean, it's fine. It's just... there's a lot more to be desired, and I went for it, and I said what improvements. I said improvements need to be made, and I offered a unique... it's not super unique, but it's a, I don't know, what I think would be a more exciting solution. I'm not just going to criticize them. I'll actually put my money where my mouth is and try to tell them, hey, this could be better if you maybe could be better if you did maybe this. You know, I'm not just gonna complain. I'll make constructive criticism. So with that, let's jump into it, and maybe I'll say some thoughts on the race afterwards. I don't really know. We'll see. 2022 UAE Tour. This race needs a facelift. At the UAE Tour, Alpecin Phoenix's Jasper Philipsen transformed into a higher-tier sprinter when he bested Bora's Sam Bennett, Ineos's Elia Viviani, Bike Exchange's Dylan Groenewegen, Groupama's Arnaud Demar, UAE's Pascal Ackermann, and Quick-Step's Mark Cavendish not once, but twice. Though on stage 2, Mark Cavendish did manage to win the most chaotic sprint of the race with the invaluable help of Quick-Step teammate Michael Morkov, the lead-out GOAT. It was Jasper Philipsen who stole the sprinting show this week in UAE, beating such illustrious names. But shockingly, on the penultimate stage, the sprinters had their last opportunity stolen from them as the breakaway successfully stayed away. I watched the last 40 kilometers, but I can't say I paid too much attention because of multitasking and the assumed inevitableness of the break getting caught as their lead was pegged around 90 to 60 seconds all day. It was not until 2 kilometers to go that my attention was finally caught and I realized the 5-man breakaway still had a 50-second gap and the sprinters' teams had all blown a glorious opportunity for a pan-flat stage win. It was Gazprom Rusvelo's Matthias Vack that won that stage 6 from the breakaway. It was EF's Stefan Bissiger that won the time trial, upsetting the chrono world champion Filippo Ganna of the Ineos Grenadiers, Tom Dumoulin of Jumbo-Visma, and defending champion Tadej Pogacar of UAE Team Emirates. 4th place in the TT was probably fine for Pogacar, as the very next day on the Stage 4 summit finish, he was the victor of another weird and awkward reduced bunch sprint finish up the 20-something kilometer Jebel Jais climb. And Tadej Pogacar doubled up on the second summit finish on the last day of racing. For the 3rd year in a row, it was the Tadej Pogacar versus Adam Yates of the Ineos Grenadiers showdown on the Jabal Hafit climb. And for the 2nd year in a row in the last few hundreds of meters, Tadej Pogacar kicked to the line to defeat Adam Yates again and make it apparent to me, and hopefully all, that the UAE Tour is officially one of those races that need a facelift. Yes, the UAE Tour has officially joined the list with Tour Down Under, Flèche Wallonne, and arguably the Ardennes Classics as a whole as races in desperate need of a facelift. There are lesser, smaller races that also have trouble holding my interest, but I pick on these because they are World Tour races. They always have the top studly riders of the sport attend them, and yet over and over again, they play out in a similar formulaic fashion. When or if Australia ever reopens to allow the Tour Down Under to be held again, perhaps the new race director, Stuart O'Grady, can breathe fresh air and life into the race. Truly, if anyone can make that race great again, it is that classic star, Adelaide native, and revered hero of Australian cycling. Flèche Wallonne, I think, needs to embrace its iconic climb even more by doing many circuits up the Mur de Huy to finish off the race after much arrow-zipping around the countryside. Then the Ardennes as a whole should be moved to August after the Tour de France. But what to do about the UAE Tour? I should not just complain and criticize without being somewhat constructive, but this is a tough one. Allow me to muse. I found it a good idea and welcome change when the 4-day Dubai Tour and the 4-day Tour of Abu Dhabi combined a few years ago to make this 7-day UAE Tour. One full week of World Tour racing attracting an even more stacked field of sprinters and climbers altogether was an excellent idea instead of having separate reduced strength fields at both. The race has always been a feast for the sprinters, and a couple mountains kept it honest for the GC men to have their fun. Similar to the Tour Down Under, the riders stay in the same luxurious hotels and find good warm weather training and racing in the Northern Hemisphere winter. For this reason alone, the UAE Tour and the Tour Down Under will always be secure to attract big names and should never go away. In the far-flung Middle East, this race also goes a long way to help differentiate the World Tour from just a Major Leagues European Tour. And of course, relative to other races, the UAE Tour seems very financially stable as long as the organizers still have interest in running it. With all this said, it seems like the full package. But now, let's scratch under the surface. So far, this race has introduced 2 proper summit finishes and 1 hockey stick uphill finish at the Had Adam. Other than those, this country seems entirely pan-flat, and in the 4 years of watching, there might have been 1.5 crosswind stages. Other than that, in the flat desert, we see straight 4-lane roads, sand, man-made islands and coastlines with thousands of opulent resorts, hundreds of glitzy skyscrapers and museums, and a pronounced absence of fans on the roadside to where I question if anyone lives in these unreal megacities. Honestly, sometimes when the race is out in the desert and shows a skyline view of either Abu Dhabi or Dubai, I wonder if I am looking at a desert mirage. I do not think I am the only one at this point tired of seeing characterless skyscrapers and museums for accumulated hours on end because nothing exciting is happening during the race. Often, when they cut to a city skyline, I cannot even tell if it's Abu Dhabi or Dubai. And nor do I even care at this point, for there seems to be nothing special about either of them. As I said, I liked the history, heritage, archaeology, and geology the Saudi Tour and the Tour of Oman attempted to bring to the table. Meanwhile, the UAE Tour has rarely attempted to show any local or even real culture. I dare question that none even exists. Instead, the organizers just lean into only showing modern marvel after modern marvel to the point of soul starvation, and these structures themselves become indistinguishable to us and not marvels at all. But to the direct gripes of the racing itself, on these flat, wide, and windless desert roads, if the brake is in check, which it usually is, the peloton is so at their leisure they do not even look to be racing. At one point this weekend, the peloton was going slow enough that Jasper Philipsen did a cyclocross dismount and remount for the camera just for the fun of it without even being distanced from the peloton. It is a problem for the race if that is the most interesting thing to comment about on the day besides the sprint finish itself. Next, I am convincing myself more and more for strictly putting time trials late in races, or at least after a summit finish has established a real GC pecking order so that all the favorites start next to each other, which is what makes time trials compelling viewing. And for the summit finishes, Jebel Jais, the 20-kilometer shallow one, leads to kinda interesting racing, and to its credit, it definitely is raced hard. But the difficulty does not come across on camera, and still 15 to 20 guys are left in a bunch by the top to where the finish is as weird as it is interesting, watching the climbers sprint. and the Jebel Jais is altogether not decisive for the GC. And finally, the Jebel Hafit is a proper mountain and a good climb in itself, but there is nothing to shake things up before it, and as long as he is under contract at UAE, Tadej Pogacar is going to continue dominating this mountain that he knows every inch of, worse than Ineos's Richie Porte dominates Wollonga Hill. So, a couple of ideas to shake up this race. Go to the extremes to seek out crosswinds for at least 2 stages in the week, even if that means going into deep bumfuck nowhere desert where no modern buildings are but the crosswinds howl. If this is done, plus the 2 summit finishes and a final day time trial, then maybe this race can be a proper full package instead of just falsely masquerading as one. But I propose a second, even more bold solution. A bold solution, for it does not guarantee a Pogacar/UAE team victory at the UAE Tour. No time trials. No mountains. Forget even seeking out crosswinds. Unapologetically make this a pure sprints fest. Dare all the greatest sprinters in the sport, or all who think they are a great sprinter in the sport, to attend a full week of trials to prove just that. 7 flat sprint stages in a row. Send the race past whatever 21st century structures of vapid soullessness you want to show off the prestige of the country, and have the stages finish next to the grandest of these sites. To throw in some unbiased shooting one's own argument in the foot, I actually like the Palm Tree Islands resort finish. Pay the commentators double to shield themselves out as the UAE tourism promoters for 2 hours before the real fans tune in for the last 15 kilometers, the earliest the sprint trains might think about ramping it up. Entirely forego satisfying the climbers. There are better climbing opportunities for them to stretch their legs in Spain, Portugal, South America, and even France this time of year. Dare to be unique and make this a novel, prestigious World Tour race that the sprinters can and want to win by accumulating time bonuses at the finish lines. If not for the possible Haddam finish and the idea of crosswinds still possibly striking somewhere throughout the week, I would even dare to float the idea that this GC should not be based off time and time bonuses, but should instead be a straight points race. Even add many intermediate sprints throughout the stage to make them valuable towards overall points. Maybe the top sprinters will actually go for them in an attempt to win the overall, because they will actually come here wanting to win the overall. For this race will become prestigious to them, not just because it is World Tour, but because the wins and overall victory will be against all their top rivals. Indeed, many intermediate sprint points of actual value could even get the pure fans watching the whole stage, despite the not covert tourism advertising we shall be inundated with. No one's territory in the sport is being more squeezed out than the pure sprinters. The years where the top sprinter takes over 20 wins for the season and the whole first week of the Tour de France are pure sprints opportunity are long gone. But that does not mean one of the flattest parts of the world has to follow the trend of shafting these pure sprinters as well. Give them literally every reason to put on a good show and want to win on your soil. This race needs a facelift. Here is a daring, unique, and novel solution for the UAE organizers to generate new talking points other than saying, Tadej Pogacar has won yet another summit finish. How about that? What more can we say about him? Give the sprinters an early season lightning rod of a race to prove who is the best among them to set the tone for the rest of the spring until the Grand Tours begin. All right, so yeah, UAE, it's a flat country. They should lean into it. Just have your sprinters fest. You can show all your buildings anyways, whatever. All right. Actually, onto the race itself, because I didn't really talk about it. Jasper Philipsen, he is now in the highest tier sprinters out there. All right. Mark Cavendish is still in that. And Sam Bennett might be back down to the lowest. Not lowest, the rung below. Okay, now that he's off quick step. Based on opening weekend, well, let's just say the top, no. Well, anyways, the top sprinters you saw anywhere in opening weekend, they are also in the highest rung of sprinters in cycling at the moment. So, that's, what else to say? All right, Pogacar won 2 summit finishes. Surprise, surprise. There's nothing. All right, there's nothing interesting to say about that at this point. All right, and those are the same 2 climbs. The Jebel Jais, like, yeah, that doesn't translate across the screen how hard that is, but I get it. They're going really fast. We can't quite see it. Especially, it doesn't help that the road is really wide. Jebel Lafitte, good climb in itself, as I said, but I mean, they do all their training rides out there. I think the whole UAE team has to be out there for training camps, and they probably just go up and down that. They might do intervals on that climb for all I know. that's just a train. I mean, Pogacar's going to know every inch of that. It was kind of surprising 2 years ago that he even lost to Adam Yates, but this is what it's always going to be. Now, in the race's defense, it would have been more interesting if Egan Bernal was there, but he got hurt. That's that. It's on them now. They've done this for 4 years, and it was better than what was there before. But now it's to the point, all right, shake this up, make it more interesting. I think, yeah, you lean into the sprinters. This place is flat. Do it. Points race even. Like, what does time matter? Besides crosswinds, I guess. But still, you could carve out a cool, unique spot for yourself on the calendar if this was just a pure sprinters fest. And I don't know, I would watch. It'd be hard. It might be hard to get some of the sprinters to buy into the points aspect of it, like intermediate sprints, because some of them just want the stage win. Like they just want to rack up their total of stage wins for the year. But I don't know, maybe even put more intermediate sprints on the later stages for whichever ones are in it, and maybe they go for it earlier. I don't know, just spitballing here. I think whatever I was suggesting is better than what is currently there. I mean, Pogacar, I'd rather see him go into the Ruta del Sol or Algarve than wasting his week here because UAE wants to win their own home race. Sure, design it for the best guy in the world, and yeah, he's going to win it. Blah, blah, blah. All right, there's no other mountains besides those two that we've seen so far. I guess you could keep trying to find mountains, but we don't really even need another balanced stage race. There's enough balanced World Tour stage races out there. The sprinters don't have a World Tour opportunity to win a World Tour week-long stage race. That would actually be pretty cool to see. So that's my case. That's that. Probably enough talking about it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Follow me on Twitter. Find the blog post. Subscribe to the show. 5-star reviews, comments. Thanks for listening, everybody. Vive la cyclisme.